There's certainly a lot else going on that is important in this world, but something I couldn't just let go by without at least a word is media assessment of the death of OJ Simpson. The OJ case is one I never really cared about. I was only 1 year old at the time of the murders. I have no memory of the verdict or any of the media environment at the time. My interest came many decades later, after the release of the FX series, The People vs. OJ Simpson. It inspired me to actually do a deep dive on the case and read several books about it. What I came away with is a disgust that I can barely describe, reading in exquisite detail how OJ's defense team and the tabloid media transformed a narcissistic, abusive murderer into a Black Panther police justice icon, one of the most insane things that happened throughout the 1990s. I will not relitigate every detail here, but suffice it to say that the media and Johnnie Cochran got what they wanted. They split this country completely apart by race. You can see it clearly in the famous reaction shots to the verdict, Black audiences cheering the OJ not guilty verdict, many others repulsed by it. Let's take a listen.
Go find the killers! OJ is innocent!
I think it's great. He deserves to go free. They had no evidence on him.
So much evidence to deliberate for as short as they did and come back with a not guilty verdict. I think it shows the jury was pretty irresponsible.
And I just don't think justice was served. I don't think the jury did their job. I think they knew what they were going to do from the gate. I think it was racist based, and it was racist from the Black point of view.
This is terrible that he's going to get away with this, you know, because I do believe that he did it. And it's just not fair.
He's guilty. He's got to live with himself, man. He knows he did it. DNA is not racial. It doesn't see black and white. It just sees that he was there and he did it. He's got to live with himself, that's all.
I thought we'd at least left all that behind in the 90s where it belonged, but I couldn't help but find that rage build back inside of me when I started to see media reactions to the announcement of OJ's death, the same race huckster claptrap in 2024. Let's take a listen from CNN.
It's not like OJ Simpson was the leader of the civil rights movement of his era. You know, he wasn't a social justice leader, but he represented something for the Black community in that moment, in that trial, particularly because there were two white people who had been killed, and the history around how Black people have been persecuted during slavery. There were just so many layers. And I guess I would just close with this, is that there was racial tension then, there is racial tension now. It might not be the backdrop of the Trump campaign, but until this country is ready to actually have an honest conversation about the racial dynamics from our origin story till today, we will always have moments like OJ Simpson that manifest, and our country will always be divided if we don't actually deal with the issue of race.
So let's break that down. This woman, Ashley Allison, former Obama staffer, says that OJ Simpson represented something to the Black community because he murdered two white people, and then somehow connects OJ's not guilty verdict to slavery. I cannot tell you how angry that makes me, because it is the exact strain of thought and exploitation that Johnnie Cochran, Al Sharpton, and Jesse Jackson used in the 1990s to transform his case into something it was not. What's insane is that it wasn't even the first case of OJ apologia on CNN in the aftermath of his death. The very first was this live reaction. Take a listen.
It's also just worth noting how much was impacted by this trial, Jake. So many things happened. We saw policing changing here in the city. And it's also worth noting, because of that unrest, that racial unrest in the 90s, that is why so many people who may not have been invested in OJ Simpson were just happy to see that someone who was rich and famous and Black could get away with what other people did in the system as well, too.
What was that? So many people who was rich and famous and Black could get away with what other people did in the system, too? What strikes me about the OJ case was how much it parallels the fights that we've had ever since the 1980s. Take race out of it, and instead you see a different picture. A multi-millionaire, world-famous athlete who routinely beat and abused his wife, paid off or used his influence to quash police investigations, then bought his way out of a double murder homicide by throwing money at the most expensive attorneys in Los Angeles. His victims were a waiter who was trying to be nice, returning Nicole Brown Simpson's glasses, and Nicole Brown Simpson herself, who OJ married when she was an 18-year-old girl and was routinely and financially, emotionally, and physically abused by Simpson up until the day she died at his hand. You instead have a tale here of the rich and powerful able to get away with literal murder, while people with less resources and fame lie dead with no recourse. Look no further than the New York Times to see the media legacy of the OJ trial. Their obituary of him. The Times wrote, quote, "He ran to football fame on the field, made fortunes in the movies, but his world was ruined after he was charged with killing his former wife and her friend." His world was ruined. Poor guy. Can't believe it ever happened to him. Even after all this, today, the trial effect lingers. The race politics that were pioneered by Cochran and Jackson and Sharpton and the media, they went into overdrive in the interim decades. That's what poured gasoline on the fire of DEI initiatives, affirmative action, and the division that we have today. The parallel track, the path of the rich and the famous and the powerful, they were able to get away with whatever they want. It's only accelerated in the last 30 years, using race politics like they did as their shield. That is the true and the lasting effect of the OJ Simpson trial. It is one of the most shameful periods in modern American times, and one whose true lesson should be how much damage that it wrought over that time. That was what I couldn't get away with, Ryan.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.